Hello. My hair is looking extra great. So is yours.
It's dirty. It's fucking whatever. I don't know what's happening.
I got one
like I know.
Here, and yours is like I get this one section that just wants to hang out. Anyways, welcome. Episode 86. We are just inching closer to 100 episodes.
I know. That's so crazy.
So exciting to me. It is crazy. It's wild. Obviously, we're already well over 100 if we include PS episodes, but
true.
Traditional episodes, 100. We're gonna have to do something for it. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
We'll do. It would be fun to get dressed up and have a photo shoot.
That would be amazing. I would love that.
That would be so much fun.
Because we did say we were going to change the photo for our fucking cover for this, and we just didn't. We didn't have time.
We need to do that. We do. Anyways, so episode 86. I don't really have a title for this. Yeah, it'll be something fun. You're so good at that. The titles and the blurbs. I love you for that. I thank you enough for that. So thank you for doing that and all the time, energy, and attention you put into that.
You're welcome.
So today we are going to talk about, this is something that's come up a lot with me and my clients. I'm sure you've heard it too, Steph, is that it is the thought process, and I'm going to try to make my thoughts really succinct here. Okay, I've started therapy. I've started putting the tools into practice. I've started, setting boundaries and being healthy with people. And these things that are supposed to help my life and supposed to make everything feel better, are now my life feels like it's unraveling more than it ever has, or it feels more out of control or more chaotic, or it feels ickier than it ever has. Why is that? Why is that happening? So we thought we would unpack that today, because I think that is a very common thing, is that people come to therapy in hopes to learn skills and learn coping skills to be able to apply to their everyday life in different situations that they're struggling with. And then when they start to implement those different skills, which usually is more open communication, setting boundaries, having structure in their routine, putting themselves first versus having this people-pleasing attitude, it starts to look very, very different to everyone else in their life. Mm-hmm. And everyone else in their life is so used to the person operating in a certain way that it starts to feel like, okay, stop signs all over the place. They're like, why is this happening? Why are you acting like this? What's happening? And then starts to create this disruption in their life.
Mm-hmm. It can be jarring for the people in your life, right? Mm-hmm. For many different reasons. I think what's important to note too is that when you do start to work on yourself in whatever way that you're doing that, you're starting to recognize your own patterns, and that can make you feel out of control because you're pointing things out that you're doing that you now know are ineffective. And you're like, well, fuck, I think you can start to question not what's wrong with me, but why did I do that? And then you're going to go back and think of all the times that you allowed such and such thing to happen and blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing though. Trying to rewind and think back to things that you would have done differently now, it's not effective because you can't change what's already happened. You can reflect on it and say next time I will do this, right? Or if this situation comes up again, I will not tolerate this, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. But wanting to go back and wish that you could change things, not helpful for anybody. You're just going to create shame and frustration within yourself. Know that you have the tools now and you're working on yourself now, and you're going to move forward. I think another thing that happens sometimes with people, I know, is that people still have this idea of you, of the past you and who you were. And then you start to change and they're like, yeah, but you haven't changed. You're still the same. You still struggle with blah, blah, blah. Because I don't know if it's, they don't want to see it. I don't know. I have no idea why that happens, but it does. And I have to walk my clients through that a lot too, of but here's the thing. Do you see changes? Do you feel better? Do you recognize the things that you have done to make things better for you? That's what matters, not how somebody else sees you. That doesn't matter.
Well, we can't control other people's perception of us. Correct. So even if they are going to think that we are going to stay in the same exact space and personality and characteristics that we have for our whole entire life, it's not my job to sit there and change that. My job is to continuously focus on, okay, to reflect, what can I do differently? How did that work out? Okay, maybe I do this next time. Maybe I'll try this next time. When you're talking about the, before that aspect in viewing, like, well, focusing on all of the things that you used to do or could have done or whatever. I find that a lot of times I do that with people in challenging cognitive errors with shoulds. So a lot of times shoulds is honestly the one that comes up the most that does have facts, in the sense of, I should have done X, Y, Z. So, I should have set a boundary. I should have told them no. I should have said, I can't go. And I'm like, yes, let's unpack that, right?
Sure.
Because again, we've stated this, box 4, when you're challenging cognitive errors, will give me facts that prove that that's true. I should have told them no. Why should you have told me no? Give me facts that prove that that's true. I didn't have the time to do it. I didn't have the money to do it. I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to do it, blah, 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 whatever the reason may be. Okay. Those can absolutely be facts. So let's look at that. Box 4 isn't a point to shame yourself. It's a jumping off point. Then how do I take that and move forward into this next step of like, okay, starting to implement these boundaries. Let's look at how I felt in that situation. I felt put on the spot. I felt unprepared. Okay, when I'm starting to notice and feel those things, I automatically then am going to say, hey, I need to take a step back. I need a couple of days to reflect before I answer for anything, or putting up those boundaries. That then is going to cause this chain reaction or this ripple effect, right? If I'm saying no when somebody is used to or expecting me to say yes, it's going to be this, well, why can't you do it? Or why, you've always done it, blah, blah, blah. You don't know an explanation to anybody for anything. Correct. If you're setting the boundary in the sense of, I don't have time, I can't, I don't want to, whatever that it may be, then please attempt to be as truthful as possible. We don't have to make up some giant lie as to why you don't want to do something. Sure. You're in control of your body, yourself, your mind, your emotions. If you don't want to go, if you don't want to do something, if you don't want to bring something, if you don't want to see someone, you have the right and the wherewithal to say no. Like, you don't have to go and do anything else or extra, prove yourself to somebody of like, well, I can't go because of this. It doesn't matter why you can't, period. That's where the conversation can end if you would like it to. But realistically, them being able to pay attention to how did I feel in those moments. Now let's start setting data points for when that comes up in the future of, okay, I feel overwhelmed. I need to take a step back, or X, Y, Z. Does that make sense?
I just had a thought and I lost it.
Yeah, I was holding on to that thought real hard, fucking hard, Stephanie.
Boundaries. Got it. I tell clients all the time that the people who push back on your boundaries are the people you need the boundaries with the most, right? Because those are the people that will walk all over you. They will guilt you into doing things. They will shame you if you don't agree with what they want you to do and things like that. I can't even explain to you how many clients I have worked with who did not have boundaries with family and they were miserable. Right? You're just expected to do these things because they're family. You're expected to do things because it's your parents. You're expected to do things because it's your brother or your sister. According to fucking who?
Thank you.
And here's the thing. I used to be that person for a very long time until I was like, did I actually agree to be like at everybody's beck and call all the time? No. So why am I continuing to do it? I never felt like I could say no, because there was something else that came with it of like, well, I don't feel like being guilted or, made to feel bad. But here's the thing, that would have been a choice on my end to feel bad about it when I could have just accepted that I said no and it is what it is. Just like when you say no to something, if somebody is choosing to be mad at you about it, that's on them.
Because they set expectations. Yes. They set the reason is they set expectations. They expected you to behave a certain way, and you decided to behave oppositely because you didn't agree to those expectations. So they can feel whatever type of way that they want. But unless you agreed to those expectations, then I don't know what we're doing here. Like if I didn't agree to do all of those things, then I don't have to feel bad about XYZ of what you thought this relationship was going to be like. That is why open communication before getting into any relationship, intimate or not, friendship, doesn't matter, is so important. Being able to have those set firm boundaries with people and letting them know exactly where you're at so that they can attempt to respect those boundaries. However, you are the person who is in charge of enforcing your boundaries. It is not somebody's job to respect your boundaries. People will break boundaries constantly. If we're setting them, it's our job to enforce them. I can't set a boundary with Steph and say, hey, I can't record on Friday nights or Saturday mornings because Sophia has soccer. I can't expect Steph to completely understand and know Sophia's schedule. That's not realistic.
Sure.
It's my job. And when she's like, oh, I can't record Friday, let's record Saturday. For me to be like, no, I can't record Saturdays. Remember, Sophia has soccer. Versus me agreeing and being like, yeah, okay, we can. And then coming on being frazzled and being all these other, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? Well, Sophia has soccer and we have to get this done. Oh, why didn't you say something? Well, I told you before, it's not my job to sit here and expect Stephanie to, that's not the right wording, but I cannot expect Stephanie to remember certain boundaries that I set because it's mine. I'm the one who's in control of it. I'm in charge of it.
Also, if you think about starting therapy, I've had plenty of clients that are like, yeah, you're like my fifth therapist, right? Or I've been in therapy for years. I just want a new therapist. But I've also had people who have never been in therapy in their life. And so opening Pandora's box and bringing all of this stuff to light and to the surface, it is going to feel super chaotic and out of control because you're like, well, fuck, I've held this in for fucking 15 years and now I'm talking about it and it feels like an open wound. So it is going to feel scary. It is going to feel like I don't want to go through all of this again. But I promise the more consistent you are, the better it gets. It's also not I'm going to come in once and talk about everything that's ever happened to me and I'm going to feel better. That's not how that works.
It's not how it works at all. I can't tell you how many people I've met with to do EMDR or potentially just met with to do therapy and then them be like, well, I think some of these things are affecting me. I'm not necessarily sure. And then they talk or discuss. It's not unload or dump, but just put all the pieces on the table of all of the different traumas that they've been through. And I'm like, you think? I don't know how you survived half of these things. Half of these things are trauma by themselves, and then you've got them stacked. You're a miracle. And half the time people are like, oh, not really understanding. Because they've been so conditioned or the life that they grew up in of that being so normal and all of those other things that it's like, yeah, all of that plays a part in this. So that's when you start to unpack all of those memories, all of those things that you've been through, all of those different neural pathways that you've created and your family has helped you create when you're younger, and then unpacking them and trying to learn new ways of coping, new ways of approaching things, and new ways of communicating. Yeah, it's going to feel like everything is falling apart, but you have to understand that thinking about anything in this life, it has to fall apart in order to come together. So in the sense of anything growing on this earth, anything, the seed is breaking open to be able to release and to be able to bloom. And it takes time. It takes the best analogy I have a fiddle leaf fig, guys. And if you don't know what that is, it is a beautiful, beautiful tree. It will eventually be a tree. Mine is not a seedling. I don't know what baby trees are called, but
small trees. Sprouts,
It's a tiny tree. It's bigger than a sprout. I don't want people to think of micro. It's a pony, if you will, of trees, a pony tree. I don't know, it's like this.
Sure.
It's like that big. And so I saw a video that said, because it was just shooting off leaves in the summer, right? Because everything grows in the summer. Shooting off leaves after 6 months of dormancy. And I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And then some guy was like, okay, the next bulb, pinch it off. And then it will start sprouting different branches. And I was like, blackjack, I'm going to test my luck. Russian roulette, here we go. Yeah, pinched it right off. I was like, oh my God, please don't die. Luckily, it didn't lose any of its leaves, but it did absolutely nothing. God, for 3 months. And then October hit, the beginning of October, and it lost 3 leaves. And I was like, that's it. It's dying. That's it.
It's the end.
I'll let you know. A new leaf just shot out and a new branch is coming out.
That's awesome.
this is the moral of the story, is that it's going to feel like everything is falling apart. It's going to feel like, oh my God, nothing is moving. Everything is stagnant. Oh my God, the leaves are dropping. And then we're shooting out into growth. That's what it feels like. The arrow is strung the tightest. That bow is strung the tightest before the arrow is released. And that arrow being released is traveling to the new destination. Okay? So please understand that it may feel like everything is falling apart, but remember, feelings are not facts. Challenge that. Does it feel like everything is falling apart, or is this new territory and you're not exactly sure where your footing is? Then yeah, I can understand why it feels like it's falling apart, but it's not necessarily falling apart.
Well, and think about if you're bringing up all of this stuff that's upsetting or trauma that has happened, all of that's at the forefront of your brain. And so naturally, you're going to be focusing on more things that aren't going right and not going well, instead of what you need to be doing is challenging it to say, this is part of my growth. Like, I have to work through this in order to get better. I'm doing this for me. If we're focusing on that, it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
So your life isn't falling apart. Your therapist isn't making it worse. Therapy isn't ruining your life. You are just allowing yourself to be open to the possibility of things that were always there. You are allowing yourself to be open to the possibility of validating things that your intuition was telling you, this isn't necessarily normal. And now somebody is, normal is a relative word, but this isn't necessarily, this doesn't feel good. It didn't feel good growing up. Somebody is validating that for you and saying, no, gosh, that's trauma. You survived. You're resilient. I can understand that you maybe don't want to feel resilient. However, you're here. Let's unpack that. Let's talk about it. And also, everything isn't falling apart. You're learning to set boundaries and healthy communication. So while all these other people may be upset, realistically look inside. You feel more stable and secure? Is that feeling of overwhelmed or upset or any of that coming from your thought process of how other people might be perceiving you? Recognize that you don't have control over that. You don't have control over somebody else's perception of you. Do you feel good? Do you feel stable? That's what matters. That's what we're focusing on, building us up first to then be able to help other people, show up in the roles that they're the hats that we wear in our lives, daughter, mother, brother, sister, whatever, however you're showing up. You have to take care of you first in order to be able to give back to those areas. And those areas are also going to come with boundaries and open communication. So.
Yes. And understand that growth doesn't happen when you're comfortable. So.
And it's not linear. It's not just because you decide to go to therapy and decide to potentially get a medication to help you that all of a sudden we have a straight up shot, like this trajectory is just straight up, like we're just going up the mountain and everything's going to be great. No, it is not a smooth path all the time. I can guarantee 100% though it's worth it.
And I hear a lot of times people will be like, well, I feel like I took 5 steps forward and I took 10 steps back. Here's the thing. Life is going to give you setbacks. It's going to happen. Shit's going to happen that you weren't prepared for. That's going to affect you. But how you talk to yourself about those things, how you process through those things matters. If you immediately go back to old patterns, it is going to feel like you're taking 10 steps backwards. If you recognize, I don't want to continue to behave that way, I need to do this instead, that's what matters. Shaming yourself for possibly falling back into old patterns or like a piece of an old pattern or whatever, that's not helpful. Recognize that you did it and say, like, you know what? I apologize for reacting that way. That's not how I wanted to handle this. Here's what I would have done instead. Here's what I'll do next time. Like, own your shit.
1000%.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You can find Steph at The Spooky Therapist. You can find me at BEA_XO11. You can find us at Rewriting Her Story Podcast, all on Instagram. You can find us at Rewriting Her Story Podcast on YouTube. If you want to watch these videos of our lovely faces, get the behind the scenes action of the facial expressions we make and the fidgets that I'm using for that day, and our hand gestures, our hair, like me constantly checking myself to make sure that I don't look like a psychopath. And then you can email us at rewritingherstorypodcast rewritingherstory@gmail.com. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, suggestions, we would love to hear it. Any topics you want to hear covered, we're always looking.
Give us a 5-star review also.
Yeah, like, share, subscribe, please, because we're trying to earn our 5 stars for Spotify. We're at 4.8 and I want 5. So I want all the top-notch reviews, all of them, every last one. Competition is setting in hard. Let's go. Until next time. Bye.